Hey everyone, this is Writing on Air. Writing on Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by 101 Things to Do in Butte County. The new edition is out and available at over 200 locations countywide. If you're wondering what to do this weekend or looking for someplace to go, a free copy of 101 Things to Do in Butte County can be found at retail shops, visitor centers, chambers of commerce, motels, restaurants, and many other locations throughout Butte County. Or visit them online at 101thingstodo.net. And again, that's 101thingstodo.net. Well, hello everyone. Wow, speaking too fast here. My name is Kevin, and this is Writing on Air, and I'm here with my co-host, Kylene.
Hi, Kevin. How's your vacation?
Oh, it was good. It was good. Not long enough, but I liked it. How was yours?
It was good.
Good. Well, let's give you a small synopsis of the show. This is Writing on Air, and we take submissions from anyone who likes to do creative writing. And then usually we pair it to some background music, have a small discussion of it afterwards, just to kind of give it some context and give it some meat to it, more than what's already been submitted. And then we have usually a couple pieces on there, and we kind of coalesce them together, and it should be, I mean, from what I've been told, it's mildly entertaining, I'm hoping. But I guess that's up to you guys to hear on that. But if you want to submit, please submit at our email at write.onair@gmail.com.
That's WRITE.onair@gmail.com.
Yes, thank you, Kylene. And we do shows every other Wednesday, so basically every 2 weeks, 7 to 7:30. And yeah, I think that's all I have to note on, right? Nothing else?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, this first piece is by Lily Alski. It is called Nothing. It's not nothing, but the title is Nothing. And before we get into it, I have to explain a little bit of background. Otherwise, it might sound a little bit disjointed. This piece is written to be both visually to have some context and auditorily to have some context. So when you listen to it, think of an ebb and flow of an ocean. It's supposed to kind of, when you're looking at it, it kind of tapers down and then billows back up, then tapers down and billows back up in different parts, kind of like an ebb and flow of a tide. So she wanted it read just like that. So it picks up its cadence and then it comes back down, kind of like a wave, like a collapsing. So when you listen to it, have that in mind. So here we go. Nothing, Lily Alski. Nothing. The feeling is nameless. You have felt it too. The way the light is cast off the mountain on the sunset, how the flag billows and dances in the wind, the words that fall from your lips, you have seen it too, I know. The cracked and splintered rocks surround us, how your laughter vanishes into time, your promises there as ephemeral as you and I, do you know this? My body craves to be one with the earth. She beckons me home. Do you feel this? Do you feel the way the rain rolls off of skin, gliding like tears, the tears of my body, the pulse of the run, of the chase, of desire? The cracks that form on my face, spiderwebbing across my skin, glass shattering with the hope to return home again. My lips are dry. Do you ever notice the way the child hugs his mother? Demand, hope, desire, dreams, expectations woven together, the casing of a human. We cry when we meet the world, they cry when we leave it. Do you ever feel your shadow sigh? Unspoken hopes, naive dreams, she wears them all in the shadow of your sleeve. The cracks of the earth, the cracks of your skin, you and I, we are broken. This moment, the pain of my heart, will dissipate soon. We are a star imploding. The breath after the last note sung, the last sob before sleep sets in, the rays that darkness eats upon nightfall, the gray hairs glistening atop our heads. Can you tell me why? Tell me this is a dream, a sweet, sweet dream with no bitter reality. I am the chorus of the song, and I will fade as a raspy lyric. I will become the night I walk towards, the night I fear. Tell me, have you seen the future? I have. It is as empty as the present. Thus there is not time to truly feel my touch, to analyze the taste of the sky. There is not time for you or I. There is only now. The meaningless and empty, the moving clarity of now. I taste the sand of the earth as I kiss her goodbye. I will not remember you. You will not remember me. The flag billows and dances until the wind goads her no further, and then she is still. Darkness covers her. The end is always a beginning. Hello is goodbye, and sometimes you are I. Well, that was Lily Alski's Nothing. Any thoughts, Kylene?
I'm going to have you go first and give us kind of a rundown of what this poem is saying.
Yeah, so The way I read it and the way it's kind of striking me is really, it has a really strong existential root. The whole piece, like nothing. The feeling is nameless, but you felt it too. The way the lights cast off the mountain, how you see the nature, and there's just not really anything going there, but there's so much going on, but there's just no meaning to it almost. The cracked and splintered rocks around us, how there's this duality of like this amazing beauty, and how the earth is kind of calling you to basically an inertia, just like a nothingness. My body craves to be one with the earth. She beckons me home. Do you feel this? Do you feel the way the rain rolls off of skin, gliding like tears? As in like this, there's this sorrow almost, this chase she talks about, the pulse of the run. There's so much emotion built into this, and she can't find a meaning for it. It's just nothing there. There's woven together. It makes us the casing of this human. We cry when we meet the world, but everyone else cries when we leave it. It's a very interesting, just consistent sadness that's going on. You and I, we are broken. This moment, the pain of my heart, will dissipate soon because we're a star imploding. The breath after the last note sung. There's this ending feeling to it. And that's kind of all of it. There's all these things going on. At the start of this poem, she says nothing. Feeling is nameless. And then by the end of it, she says you and I. And it kind of focuses down into that context where there is nothing, but there's just you and I. So it focuses more from a perspective of just like there's nothing going on to let's just focus on you and me. Hello is goodbye, and sometimes you are I. Sometimes we're the same person. And it's really, in some senses, disjointed, but the way that she has this structure, this ebb and flow, that's also a really big existential crisis, because it kind of speaks towards wanting that life there, getting this light off the mountain, the sunset, all these emotions, getting them there, and then losing them again, becoming nothing. So even when it structures back down to having nothing, that adds to this poem, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of really amazing parts that she covers in this, one of which is the idea of crying when we come into this world and then crying when we leave this world, if that makes any sense. There's a cyclical aspect of this poem, especially again with that beat, the rise, the fall, the ebb, the flow, the waves coming and going. The you are I, human nature, the continuation of being born and dying again, the nothingness, the everything, the hellos and the goodbyes. There's a really good back and forth that I really appreciate in this particular poem.
Yeah, even that back and forth that you just said, the way this is structured, ebb and flow is a back and forth. There's this nothing, but there's you. There's nothing, but there's I. There's nothing, but there's this. And it always goes back to that emptiness, that of now, that brokenness, that dissipation. We're just losing. We're just always going back to nothing, essentially. And that's really that existential crisis in its core. We're always going back to nothing. There is nothing else. There's so much emotion here, and there's so much sorrow, and there's so much just packed in, but there's really nothing. This reality is just broken. There's nothing going on, but there's also so much going on. So that it's just that pull consistently, and she really shows that well in just how she visually has the poem and how it's structured.
It almost makes me question the way we use nothing, because I don't think there is such a thing as nothing. There's always something in, even though when there isn't nothing, unless we talk about vacuums and stuff, that's something else. But right. I feel that's almost contradicting what we see nothing being. A couple things in the imagery that she uses in here. I love the cracks like spider webs, talking about skin, talking about rocks, and there's this idea of human and nature, and this actually seems to come up in a couple other things. We'll talk about that later, but I love this these visuals. I just to see these cracks like spider webs. And then one of my favorite lines is gray hairs glistening atop our heads.
Yeah,
that was really beautiful. I don't know why I just like that so much.
The rays that darkness eats upon nightfall, the gray hairs glistening atop our heads. There's even like a life in this too, because she talks about the way the child hugs his mother, and then at the start it's oh man, I gotta find this line here. Oh, I cannot find it. It's 3 pages here, and I can't see it. But anyway, she has it structured like that too, where there's some context of life in this as well. The casing of a human woven together. We cry when we meet the world. They cry when we leave it. There's always this pull into kind of like the vacuum you were saying. There's just always a pull to something else, where there is nothing. And that's kind of where life goes. When there's nothing there, life can kind of flourish sometimes, but also, I guess it's a fine line. It could be argued either way, but where there is nothing, things sometimes go to fill it up.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Man, I like this piece a lot. Well, we could talk more, but I think we have some other pieces lined up too as well.
Absolutely. We have one here. Actually, there is no name on this particular piece that we have.
Okay.
It's also another poem. We do definitely have a lot of poems that come in through here.
Yeah, I think that's the majority of our submissions have been poetry.
I noticed, yeah. Hopefully next week we'll have some prose, but I do love working with some poems. There's always a lot to get from poems, so.
This one, it has a name, right?
No, there's actually no name on this one. The name of the poem itself?
Name of the poem, yes.
Sorry. The name of the poem itself is called Tree Wisdom.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Tree Wisdom.
As a baby, I laid beneath a tree and gazed upon its cloak of leaves. I kicked and giggled and reached up high to touch the face and look into its eye. That day the tree smiled, I could see its delight. 1,000 leaves shimmered, shiny and bright. As I grew older, I'd climb and explore. I'd hide in the branches and get lost in its lore. The leaves would whisper their sweet, loving songs as I fell asleep in the branches so strong. I visited the tree from time to time, but as I got older, I forgot how to climb. The tree grew stronger year after year, yet I became weaker, and I cried many tears. I cannot say how I lost my way, so I went to the tree one lovely spring day. I leaned against its trunk so strong, and knew right then that I belong. The tree revealed its secrets that day, it shared its wisdom of the ancient way. It spoke of rain and sun and wind, of how to stand strong and learn to bend. It welcomed the birds and built their nests, and did not view ants as annoying pests. Its roots held fast in the forceful gale, while the leaves above were struck by hail. On long hot days with no clouds in sight, it took in the sun and breathed in the light. It told me the cycles of things I should know. The dark times should be used as a chance to grow. That spring could not happen without fall, how summer and winter helped it grow tall. It learned to dance and sing in the wind, sing hardships as beginning and not as an end. It came to me then, and I understood the timeless essence of the living wood. I climbed up in the tree that day. I only listened, I had nothing to say. I laughed and smiled and reached up so high. I touched its face and looked into its eye.
That was Tree Wisdom. Man, I'll go first real quick. Lots of stuff. So with lilies, it was like there wasn't a root. There was that nothing, that emptiness, consistently being pulled towards, and that flow between trying to find something and not. And this is literally almost the opposite of that. There is a root. There's this tree. There's this consistent thing going on. And from that one stable kind of piece of nature, I suppose, there is that foundation that's drawn, and that teaching wisdom from it. And it's a very, man, it's a beautiful piece. There are parts in it that she just at the end there, she just sits in the tree and listens. That to me just gives me so much visual, I guess, imagery in my mind of just sitting out on a hill with the lone tree, just sitting inside the tree, talking about nothing and just kind of absorbing in what's going on. Really just an introspective, calm presence that's there.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because there's a lot of end rhyme, which normally I push against end rhymes. That's just my own taste. But there was something about this that we sometimes, the type of wisdom that we usually listen to sometimes are in songs and beats. And this one, because of those end rhymes, it almost sounded not somewhat of like a nursery rhyme. It begins with the baby, rockabye baby, in a tree. There's so many other poems that include the wisdom of trees. And so I actually enjoyed kind of being cradled in this song. Or I'm sorry, sorry, not song,
Yeah,
this
in the
poem, but
piece.
it came to me as a song. Like it was almost something you could sing if given,
Yeah.
the right tune. It brings us back to this idea that humans cannot exist without nature.
Mm.
And we have this cyclical thing going on again where this tree talks about the seasons as they come, as they go. They will always be that same way. They're all, they grow stronger. They talk, the tree talks about the seasons. And it's very similar to lilies, again, talking very cyclical about things dying, things coming into the world and then leaving. And I really enjoyed how the two of these completely different poems are very, very similar, and that very humanistic talk of what it's like to be humans in nature,
Yeah.
or human nature, as it were, with lilies.
Yeah, and how nature has impressed so much upon us. Like Lily's, she talks about wanting to be drawn back to the earth, go back home.
Mm-hmm.
That is like the safe place. And this is arguably being within the earth as well, being within this tree that has its roots in the earth. It is an extension of it. And there's also this nice feeling of growth throughout the entire thing.
Yes.
It's a very big progression. And she says, after a while, I lost my way, similar to the giving tree, I suppose. And then eventually she found it back by going back to those roots, by going back to just listening and just kind of remaining strong, listening of how these cycles change and how things ebb and flow, similar to lilies. It's just a slightly different context. It's very potent. This is a very good piece.
Yeah, they also, this author or this poet uses the I kicked and giggled and reached up high to touch its face and look into its eye. And that's repeated at the very end. The beginning starts as a baby, and then at the end it does the same. I laughed and smiled and reached up so high, I touched its face and looked into its eye. It's now an adult in the tree, not just below the tree. It's actually involved with nature. And I think as we grow older, we start to appreciate and understand what nature means to us. And I think in this poem, that's that same idea. And my favorite words in this is living wood.
Timeless essence, living wood.
Yes, living wood. And it's so crazy because when we hear wood, we think of something dead. It's made in a desk, or that, this house is made of wood, or this something is made of wood. But when it says living wood, there's something about that I don't know how to explain that. I just thought that was a great combination of words right there.
Yeah, and even that, like, giggled and reached up high speaks, I guess, maybe in my opinion, applies a happiness of some sorts. And then at the very end there, when she's doing the same type of thing, it's like finding that happiness again, finding that comfort again, finding almost that womb of safety, going back to that childhood. So, yeah, I agree. It's very good.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have one more piece. We'll have to. I always want to talk more about these pieces because they're so good, but we have to stay on track here. All right, so this last piece is by Josh Danzy, I think.
Yes, we do have a Josh Danzy poem today.
All right. I think he hasn't submitted in a while. This must be one of his more recent ones, I think, or something. I'm not sure. What is this one called?
This is called External Inertia.
All right, External Inertia by Josh Danzy.
I am a gray thing, black and white photograph, high contrast, details in curves and edges, hard against my mind in such clarity. It scares me to look. It scares me to need the blood-red sunset, the blue cast billowing clouds perched opposite. So much. I feel like an addict. I draw the puffy collides from the sky with eyes like sharp pinprick syringes. I fold that luscious batter into my blood. The air I huff with a long draw sends my thoughts spinning like the cams of a greased manifold. I subsist on external inertia. The puzzles of leaves and patterns beat me like a Morse code. The drumming is ecstatic to my thirsty ear. I seek the root of the song, a time signature or tempo shift. There is only noise.
That was External Inertia by Josh Danzy. Ah, I love that piece.
There is a lot going on in this. I like he's got a lot of different contrasts and colors, which is weird because it starts with I am a gray thing. And for me, when I hear I am a gray thing, I'm thinking of like how the sky is, lately, spring kind of
kind of rainy-ish.
Right, yeah, which is weird, but in spring there's also this brightness. So we have this contrast, black and white photograph, which is weird that he uses the word gray because it's either black or white. It's very rarely gray, but then they use that gray word. And then we have a lot of contrast. We have curves and edges. I think edges are sharp, curves are not so much. So there's this sharpness and then this smoothness. We have a blood red sunset right before blue cast billowing clouds.
Wonderful contrast there.
Beautiful. That's like, for some reason I hear blood red sunset and I think of a blood red orange. So I'm tasting that and then I'm feeling this calm coolness of the blue cast billowing clouds. There's just a lot really going on this with, we're coming back to nature. We're talking about roots, leaves, patterns, and beat, which is a lot of what Lily had going on. Drumming, it's ecstatic to this thirsty ear, tempo shift, noise, time signature, just a lot of really great, beats. The contrast of the colors also remind me of the contrast of the beat that he uses within the poem.
I like my favorite line on this, or favorite, I guess, stanza would be, I subsist on external inertia. The puzzles of leaves and patterns beat me a Morse code. Because there's a few different ways you can take that. The beat me a Morse code is on its own line, and you could take that as an aggressive, like it's beating in me a Morse code. It's constantly hitting me. Or it is just beating it, and I am outside of it listening to it. But either way, he is subsisting on everything around him because he himself is empty. There is nothing inside, it feels like. And so he's looked to an external route, obviously external inertia, to find a meaning. Morse code is a puzzle, really, or it's obviously encoded, and so he has to decode it. Beat me a Morse code. That means there is a language there that's being spoken that he's trying to draw from to gain some context, some direction almost. So he's constantly looking back. The puzzles, the leaves. He's following a direction, and just like an addict to try and draw these things. I mean, he talks about blood multiple times, like it's inside of him. These things are becoming him because that's where he draws them from. This everything around him in nature is giving him this movement, is giving him this arguably this life. The drumming is ecstatic to my thirsty ear. It gives him a stability right there. I seek the root of the song. I need something to ground me, a time signature or tempo shift to give me a pulse. There is only noise. It really puts in this change of just like, I need motion. I need things to be there for me. I'm gray, black and white, high contrast, details, curves and edges, hard against my mind in such clarity. And it scares me to look outside, to need the sunset, the clouds, the opposite things that are swirling around me in nature. And I feel like an addict because I need them. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Yeah, I'll say two things. One, when we say he or she, when we talk about poems, we're actually not talking about for those of you who are who are submitting. When we say he or she, we actually aren't talking about the author, the poet themselves. We're just talking about the poem, but it has the words I in it, and we're just kind of putting the I as a he or she. Right, so forgive us on that. The person within the poem is the I, so we do say he or she. So I apologize for that. But in regards to the attic part, I do love that mention because it does a lot of, like you say, we use. Addicts use outside things to help them feel better on the inside.
Mm.
And I really do love how in all of these poems, there's almost this addiction to nature, this addiction to something else that we need, this external something to make our internal feel better. That's so crazy. It's external inertia. In reality, it's trying to change that inertia inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the part of the show, I think, where we kind of pull back and look at all of them again, which is kind of what you were doing right there. So that was perfect segue. So with Lily's piece, we have kind of this empty void, but within this, there is so much going on that comes from nature. The way the light is cast off the mountain in the sunset. There's these things that are arguably an external inertia that are giving context to the person in the poem, the person they're talking about. As in, we're ephemeral, but we crave to be with the earth. That's where our meaning comes from. That's where our roots are. For some reason, it is impressed upon us in existence. And it ebbs and flows with the context of our mind and how that changes. And then you shift over to the tree wisdom, where when she got away from nature, when she got away from those roots in the earth, almost this tree, she lost her way. And she went to the tree, or I think the line is, I cannot say how I lost my way. So I went to the tree one lovely spring day. She came back to it. There was a context that was lost, but she had it once. And then when she came back and re-looked at that and it was silent again and kind of let it steep into her, she found the roots again and she found her happiness. And then there's Josh's, who is similar to Lily's in the fact that I'm empty. There's nothing. There's no push. There's no direction. But I get these things from things outside of me. Mm-hmm. And that's where I draw it into me, and it becomes me. It gives me this beat. It gives me a life. It gives me an essence, just like Lily's, that ebb and flow, that pull and push of just these things inside and outside and inside and outside. Josh's is outside into inside, and the tree wisdom one is, when I went away from it, I had to go back into it.
Yeah, what's actually really cool too is if you notice with every single one of these poems, without nature, these poems would not be what they are. Mm. Like again, as I was saying before, humans cannot exist without nature. These poems cannot exist as they are without nature. And I find that very beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a very heavy theme, which I think is great, especially right now. We've got spring. It's very beautiful outside.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think those were all really great. Such different poems in so many ways, but yet again, there's this combination and, there's so much that actually works together, which I think is really neat. I don't know how we end up having these similarities, but I think they turned out really good. So thank you very much for everyone. And again, we apologize if we say he or she. This is just our reading when we talk about poems. We're mostly talking about what's within the poem. So just as a heads up, we don't read you into the poem. We don't know who these authors are necessarily, so we don't actually assume this is what the author themselves lives and thinks. This is just what the poem is saying. So just a little heads up.
And to give some context too, we have very brief interaction with these beforehand. Usually we kind of have tried to, I guess, orchestrate our reading around when we're in the station.
Yeah, so we have a cold reading for these. So we don't go through and read these hours and hours ahead of time. We try and put them as fresh in front of us as possible. That way, when we're reading them, we give you our first, right off the bat thing that we actually see when we read. So it keeps us fresh, and we'd like to think it keeps your work fresh too.
Yeah, because if we were to sit here and look and analyze each one, that could take a long time.
Yes.
And not that we're not willing to do that, but it kind of really identifies us as both helping create this and being part of the creation, because we get to sit here and the first things that hit us, the things that are really most poignant when you are putting them into your pieces, strike us how you want them to strike us. Correct. There is no trying to read into it. It is just the first emotion that comes to us. So we can actually become part of the audience with you guys when we're listening to it, listening to our own pieces, reading it, and reading it as well. This is why we have two people and we swap back and forth, so each person can kind of take that turn. But yeah, we really like to stress that. Lost my track there for a second. We really like to stress that we read these kind of at the same time that you're hearing them, because I feel, like Kylan said, that keeps it fresh. But so I hope you guys enjoyed the show. This is Writing on Air, and as I said, we play every other Wednesday, 7:30, and you can submit at write.onair@gmail.com.
That's WRITE.onair@gmail.com. We take any of your work. We'd love to read it here on air.
Yes. And again, this is Writing on Air, and Writing on Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Harrison Daily Wright Accountancy Corporation in Chico. Harrison Daily Wright provides certified public accountants specializing in accounting, bookkeeping services, auditing, tax prep, and planning, management support, services for nonprofit organizations, and more. To reach Harrison Daily Wright, call 895-1209. And again, I hope you guys all have a good night, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Please do tune in, and please submit. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.